Now, Wednesday marked exactly 1 month since the deadly school shooting at Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida. Across the country, students observed the day by standing up and walking out of their classrooms. Organizers said they were protesting Congress, specifically what they consider inadequate responses to gun violence in schools and in neighborhoods. While students demonstrated, the acting deputy director of the FBI testified to lawmakers on Capitol Hill. David Bodick owned up to the agency's failure to follow up on warnings about the accused gunman Nicholas Cruz.
The FBI could have and should have done more to investigate the information it was provided prior to the shooting. While we will never know if we could have prevented this tragedy, we clearly should have done more.
Adriana Diaz was in Parkland, Florida, where survivors of last month's attack sparked nationwide demonstrations.
A sea of students streamed out of the school behind a national movement. Parents at Stoneman Douglas High School cheered them on, like Rick and Rosemary Jensen.
This wasn't the way I wanted my son to become an activist, but you know what? I'm so glad the kids have found their voices, and I hope it's what's buoying them, because this isn't easy for them.
Freshmen Alexa Palin and Brianna Jesenkowski hugged by a memorial for their friend, 14-year-old Gina Montalto.
Does a walkout like what you guys are doing, do you think it helps?
It does help because it shows that the community is so strong and that we're coming through this together.
But the father of 14-year-old victim, Elena Petty, wants a different approach. On Twitter, Ryan Petty encouraged students to walk up to the kid who causes disturbances in class and ask how he's doing, adding the hashtag #WalkUp, not out. Still in Portland, Oregon, students who walked out formed a clear message. And even snow and frigid temperatures in Akron, Ohio didn't stop the youngest students determined to show their support.
This is what democracy looks like.
In nearby Chicago, nearly 1,000 students left Jones College Prep. But they say the rest of America is now grappling with the gun violence they've battled for years.
They don't live in cities or communities where guns play constantly, where children are dying 24/7 in the streets, no matter if they're coming to or from school.
In Washington, D.C.,
if you can speak, speak. If you can march, march.
Young people wanted their voices heard. Kate Whitman organized her school walkout in New York City.
We saw this in the 60s and the 70s with MLK, with the Vietnam protests, and we're seeing this here right now. This is a part of history.
While the walkout was underway, the NRA tweeted, "Let's work together to secure our schools and stop school violence. We protect our banks, our sports stadiums, and our government buildings better than we protect our schools." They want to work with Congress to push through legislation that makes schools safer. Errol?
Adriana, you know, it's interesting when you consider it was just 1 month ago. Many of these Parkland students were gripped by pure terror when this incident happened, and now they're watching this national movement really blossom. I'm just wondering, from your perspective there, what was the day like for parents and students, and did they have like a new sense of purpose now that they see it's not just them, it's people all over the country?
Errol, it was really emotional here in Parkland for both students and parents. In the piece, that mother that I interviewed, she was crying. You couldn't tell, but a tear dropped down her cheek as she was talking about how she always wanted her son to be an activist, but never thought it would have to be under these circumstances. The students we spoke to, they were loud. They were determined when they marched out of school. But when they reached a park about a mile away, a little bit more than a mile, and they went by foot, when they reached that park, they gravitated to the memorials. There are 17 memorials set up with crosses and stars of David representing each of the 70 people who died. They gravitated to those memorials and they sat in circles around them. They hugged each other. They cried. There was a lot of emotion. It was very somber. And so one student told me, even though a month has passed, it feels like no time at all. It feels like it was just yesterday. And when I asked them, how do you feel about the fact that this entire nationwide movement has really been sparked by what happened here and by your determination? They said that it uplifts them, it makes them feel proud, and it makes them feel like these lives weren't lost in vain, and that they can do something productive to make sure that there aren't any more school shootings. That is their hope.
And, you know, there are maybe a handful of students who have become the face of this movement, even though you've got many more students taking part. You have that march on Washington coming up. I'm wondering if now that they see that it's become something else or something bigger, do students there feel a sense of responsibility for leading this cause? You know, that some laws have been changed in Florida, but really making this a national campaign. Do they feel responsible for that?
Oh, certainly. A lot of these students have told us they are not stopping until they see change. They said, some of them, that this won't be the last walkout, because if there isn't a change to gun laws in this country, they will continue to walk out. They will continue to march, because they know this is the way to keep the national spotlight on this issue. So that's what they plan to do. They are working now and looking toward that march nationwide on March 14th, where they will also march in Washington. Some students and teachers will be going a few days early to lobby members of Congress to pass gun reform as well. And a lot of these students are either 18 years old or just on the cusp of 18, so they know that they will be able to vote soon, and they're planning on exercising that right.
Yeah, such an important detail. And lastly, Adriana, you mentioned the NRA's tweet saying they want to work with communities to protect schools and other targets. Based on all the conversations you've had, are students open to working with the NRA? Do they even want to do that?
You know, Ariel, to be honest with you, the students that I've spoken to about the NRA are not open. They seem much more closed. They say that they want to create a list of all the politicians that receive money from the NRA. They want to expose the amount of money that is donated to these politicians by the NRA. They have really vilified the NRA in their pursuit of what they believe their cause is. But some students are also a little bit more moderate and really have spoken about the importance of the Second Amendment, of not wanting to wipe out the Second Amendment, not wanting to necessarily take people's gun rights away, but just want to have smarter gun reform. So there are students on both sides, but the folks who talk specifically about the NRA really don't give any indication that they're willing to work with them.
All right, Adriana Diaz in Parkland, Florida. Thank you.